Good morning and happy Friday. We are on chapter 3 of the fourth stall. I just wanted to, before we get going, hopefully all of you are able to join our video conference this morning at 10 a.m. You're going to be going to the email that you received from me regarding the video conference and click on join conference or the link that's there. And hopefully we'll get that going at around 5 to 10 and hopefully everybody can get on. Anyway, we are on chapter 3. I did read your responses to the first two chapters, and generally speaking, they were quite excellent. You guys have some good insight there. Even though the one character, I think his name is Brian, is in the first chapter quite a bit, he's actually not one of the main characters. The main two characters of this novel are Vince and Mac. And Joe is in there quite a bit as well, but Vince and Mac are the two main guys. So we're in chapter 3, and if you recall the first two chapters, we met Mac and Vince, and Mac is the narrator. He's telling the story, and it's from his point of view, and he and Vince have started a business helping people get solve problems and they're working out of the fourth stall in the bathroom of their elementary school, which has been shut down, and so they are able to have access to that fourth stall, and that's their office. And Fred has just come to them with a problem. He is a grade 3 student at their school, and he says that somebody named Staples is out to get him, and he needs protection. And so we're going to pick it up from there. Chapter 3. You really think it's true? Vince asked after Fred left. He tossed a baseball in the air and caught it. Vince was always playing around with a baseball. Some of the best ideas we ever came up with happened while we were just tossing the ball back and forth. I nodded. Didn't you see this kid? He was terrified. Vince pondered the situation a bit longer. This is a real dilemma. It's like that one time that I wanted barbecue chicken, but I couldn't have it because I decided to be a vegetarian for 2 weeks to see what it was like to be a giraffe. Joe and I laughed. Vince had this way of making me laugh at the most serious times. It's part of why I love him so much. And the things he says usually don't make much sense because he reads so many books and knows about so much obscure stuff. Nobody usually knows what the heck he's even talking about. After Fred explained his problem to me, I had Joe post a sign in the bathroom door that said the office was closed for the day. Well, the sign actually didn't say that exactly. It really said caution wet floor, but all the kids know that is code for closed for the afternoon. If we put up a sign that says closed for plumbing repairs, then the students know that the office is closed until further notice, which might be several days. I hated closing early. It meant disappointing students and lost money, which was not good for our game fund. Right now, though, we needed to think. We sat on folding chairs in the bathroom eating the lunches that my mom had packed for us. My mom made all three of us lunches almost every day. She always liked to make food for my friends. She was cool like that. We were supposed to strategize, but mostly we chewed and kept saying how much trouble we were in. Now, you have to understand, I'm not usually afraid of much. I own this school. But if all the rumors about Staples were true, then we were dealing with one dangerous guy. And the last thing I needed was a kid that dangerous to have it in for me because I even had a plan on how to handle him. I needed to think of a way to protect Fred without revealing who was doing it. So, Vince asked. He'd been watching me think. Let me worry about it. You just make sure that Brady sticks to Fred like gum to the bottom of a desk. Brady was a third grader who did odd jobs for me sometimes. He happened to be in the same class as Fred, so we decided we were going to pay him $1 a day to keep an eye on Fred during class and especially in the halls between recesses and lunch. There are teachers who monitor the halls, but I found over the years that most teachers are pretty clueless when it comes to how things work among kids. They're never around when the real stuff goes down. What about at recess? Who's going to protect Fred then? Vince asked. We'll have to hire more help, right, Mac? Joe said. Vince gave him a look. He didn't like the idea of hiring more help because it would be expensive. The more money we spent on this stuff, the less money we'd be able to put into the game fund. Vince was always worried about our profit margin. He's right, Vince, I said. We need to hire an older kid to watch over Fred during lunch and recess. We've got to keep the office open, and that's when he'll be most vulnerable. Brady isn't big enough to do it on his own. I know we need help, Mac, Vince said as he tossed me the baseball. But we'd have to get a seventh grader at least. Do you know how much that will cost us? I caught the ball and nodded. He was right. But what else could we do? I felt the stitching and spread 2 fingers across the ball like I was going to throw a splitter. We may have to dip into the emergency fund, I said, throwing the ball back. The emergency fund is a pile of money that I started a few years ago. I keep it in my closet right next to the game fund, and it's there in case we're ever in a pinch and need a bit of money. Vince caught the ball and shook his head. But that's only supposed to be for real emergencies, like if I need an ice cream real bad and I don't have any spare change, or if I lose a video baseball game because my dumb third baseman makes an error and I get so angry that I throw my whole gaming console right out the window and it smashes the windshield of my mom's car, he said. I smirked in spite of myself. Even now, when he was genuinely concerned about our money supply, Vince was still joking around. If we get to the point where we actually have to use the emergency fund, well, then this whole situation probably will be an emergency, I said. Actually, I just got an idea for this Fred situation that might help us save money, Vince said. That's one reason Vince is such a great business partner. He always comes up with great ways to save money and pinch pennies, thrifty ways to solve tough problems. I mean, sure, his jokes are fun too, but I'd trade those in a day for his ingenious ideas. Let's hear it, I said. Well, we could get him to hang out in here until we find someone to do it for cheap. That would keep him safe and it would be free, he said. Nice, Vince, I said, but won't that let people know that we're involved? Maybe, but kids are going to find it eventually either way. We'll just make sure we get him here as soon as possible, each recess and lunch, and hope not that too many kids don't notice. All right, let's plan to do that for now. But I don't want anything to interfere with normal business long term. We eventually need to find someone else. We need to keep things running smoothly, I said. Vince nodded. It's like my grandma said once, when the coin purse is empty, the pocket lint is king. He said after a moment of silence. We all looked at him and then burst out laughing. Vince's grandma is senile. She is 103 years old or something like that, and she is always saying stuff that doesn't make any sense at all. Most of his family looks at each other uncomfortably when she does that, but Vince loves it. He writes down all the stuff she says in a quote book. Vince loves to quote his grandma, which is usually pretty funny. After a few more minutes of discussion, we decided to hire a kid named Tanzim down the line to look after Fred during lunch and recess long term. Things went on longer than expected. Tanzim is a pretty tough seventh grader, and Joe said we could trust him. Joe was going to tell him to meet me here tomorrow during lunch. This was shaping up to be a pretty tough case, but the one thing I actually thought I had on my side was the element of surprise. Staples didn't know yet that Fred had this kind of protection. Something I learned long ago from watching a lot of action movies and playing video games is that having the element of surprise is huge. It's one of the best things to have. That's why it really sucked that I didn't actually have it. Not at all. We soon found out that Staples somehow knew I was protecting Fred right from the beginning. Kids usually didn't get the drop on me, but then Staples wasn't your usual kid.